Peace, blessings, love, light. Welcome to the fourth episode of the Cosmic Medicine Journey. We've entered into Taurus season according to the zodiac astrology, which is roughly between April 20th and May 20th. This is a little bit different, as I mentioned and touched on last time, from what's happening astronomically, meaning that we're actually coming into Aries season from an astronomical perspective, and this is due to a number of reasons. One is I mentioned that when the zodiac was first established, a few thousand years ago, there was these constellations that, based on our perspective from the Earth, looking at the sun, which is called the sidereal or the sidereal calendar, we were able to observe in the night sky. And so that's what gave rise to these 12 constellations that we go through in our elliptical movement around the sun as we're witnessing the sun. Well, everything changes and everything shifts, including the tilt of the Earth's axis. And so by way of that's shifted our relationship into these constellations. But the other thing, which, these are all things I mentioned last time, but the thing that I didn't mention is that there's also the fact that each of the constellations vary in size, meaning in terms of space-time, how much they occupy within the realm of space-time. So there's some zodiac months that are about 21 days. There's some that are about 37 days. So this varies month to month. And so from an astronomical perspective, we're actually coming into Aries season right now. And Aries season is about 25 days. So that's something important to note. And the reason I go ahead and affirm the zodiac calendar is because I'm looking at it from the perspective of seasons. So in Ayurveda, there's 6 seasons. I'm looking at the year from the perspective of 12 seasons, meaning that there are nuances from month to month. And I do feel that if you operate from the perspective that the zodiac can be changing but also fixed in relationship to seasons and where we are in space-time in relationship to our tilt of our axis in relationship to the sun and the experience that we have as a planet, then you can look at it more from that perspective. And so that's kind of how I'm approaching it. So hence I'll be going ahead and affirming the zodiac season, but also just wanted to make a note of what's happening astronomically, and that's why it's a little bit tricky in getting into what this specific constellation of this particular zodiac represents. I think that's getting into a gray area in regards to horoscopes, etc. So I'm not going to go there, and that's not the perspective I'm using. I'm not an astrologer. There are astrologers out there. But I am a medicine person, and I believe firmly in our relationship to the cosmic ecosystem and the way in which we can be in alignment with the cosmic ecosystem by way of certain practices, by way of aligning with the seasons, and of course aligning with the seasons meaning deepening our relationship to Mother Earth. The season right now is Vasanta, which in Ayurveda starts in mid-March and concludes in mid-May, and that's the season of spring. It's the season of new growth, and as such, one of the recommendations is to go through a cleansing, and hence the term spring cleaning. Traditionally, for thousands of years in Ayurveda, panchakarma is what was utilized to detox the body and to prepare it for new growth. So as you're noticing in nature, and again going back to the maxim within Ayurveda, as without, so within, there is a great deal of growth happening, and you're noticing it on a day-to-day basis. So for instance, where I'm at right outside of Lenape country, which is Philadelphia, there's a great deal of lesser celandine that was very prevalent in people's lawns. So you saw the little heart-shaped leaves along with the yellow multi-petaled little flowers. And now you're seeing more dandelion growing, and so you're seeing the dandelion flowers growing. So it's a moment-to-moment thing, and we're seeing the growth. We're hearing the chirping of the tree, of the birds, so a return of some of those migratory birds. So those are all things that you can observe in nature, and by way of observing that in nature, you could observe also what's happening in your own body. So one way to address what's happening in your body is allowing for that new growth to occur, and allowing for that new growth to occur by way of not competing with it by taking on too much. So this is a good time of year to have easily digestible foods. Traditionally in Ayurveda, khichdi is eaten. Khichdi is a easily digestible food. It's a type of porridge. And then it's also a good time to fast, and also just engage in warmth as we're going in towards the northern solstice. In our elliptical axis, our digestive fire is less, and so this is a good time of year to engage in warmer activities as well, to kind of support and facilitate that release. So fasting is something that's recommended. In the lunar calendar of Islam, we've entered Ramadan, and Ramadan is a period of fasting. Most people might be familiar with the idea that at the very core that Ramadan is when Muslims fast, but it's not just the dry fast of no food, no water for about 21 hours a day, depending on the time of year. As it's lunar calendar, it shifts. So about 5 years ago it was in June, July, and now it's in April, so it'll continue going through that process of shifting. But it's also fasting from your ego, the nafs. So it's fasting from the way in which you might be engaging with the world that's keeping you from love. So there's this great quote from Rumi that I think kind of sums up Ramadan. So it's not your duty to seek for love, but merely to find all the places within yourself that's keeping you from love. And those are the places we want to go into this month. So whether it's ways in which you might lie, maybe inadvertently, the ways, and that could just be even in terms of how you might present yourself to the world, to the ways you might engage with food, or the ways you might engage with your emotions, etc. So this is a good time to observe and witness those things, and also fast from them as you grow deeper in your inward journey of transformation. So in my interview today, I actually touch on that with the Sufi Master Taoshobuddha. Taoshobuddha is someone I came across about 7 years ago, I believe, while I was looking for this band that I started falling in love with, a qawwalli band. Qawwalli is a form of Sufi devotional music that comes out of Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, that Indian subcontinental region. It's still very prominent in Pakistan and parts of northern India. There's a band called Fana-fi-Allah. I'll put a link to their music. I love their music. I think you might as well. Their music will help align you with your soul, I believe. And so I was looking for a song by them, so I just put in their title, Fana-fi-Allah, which is actually a term in Islam which means self-annihilation, which specifically is referring to the ego. So annihilating the ego, and it's a major practice in Sufism. And so as I was looking for that, I came across this lecture, or this talk, and I want to make the distinction between talk and lecture, which Taoshobuddha does when I use the term lecture, and he corrected me. He's like, I don't give lectures, lecturers give lectures. I give talks, and talks are things that come from the heart. And so he gives a talk on Fana, which is about, again, this process of letting go of the ego, so to connect with the highest. And so I really enjoyed that talk, and then I listened to some of his other talks. And I noticed when I first started listening to him, there weren't very many likes that he received, but there would be people that I'd come across that were very commercial, were maybe giving like how-to advice, and they had like millions of followers and millions of likes, and I'd see like 1 or 2 likes for him, and so and even views. So he's someone I kept listening to, and also sharing with other people. And when I was thinking and considering this month, as again we come into this season of Taurus, of spring, of Basanta, of Ramadan. I thought he would be a good person to speak with. So I reached out to him and he was available. And so we had a pretty insightful conversation, including a little bit of his background and his origin story in coming from a lineage of Sufis, as well as from very divine Vedic and Hindu teachings as well, which he does an amazing job of coalescing a lot of these great traditions as he refers to his religion as the religion of God and the language of God. And then also we get into this concept of medicine and medicine, and specifically in terms of herbal medicine, commercial herbal medicine, ancient wisdom medicine, and how that can be compromised when the practitioner is just one that might receive a certificate without necessarily going through the proper guidance, and also not necessarily being a channel of divinity. And so he talks about the importance of how being a healer means being connected with divinity. And so if you're working with herbal medicine and working with other people, or whatever it is that you're doing, your modality is how essential it is to have that alignment with divinity and also be able to get the guidance for that. And so in Sufism, that's the sheikh. In Vedic traditions, it's the guru, but we talk about that. We talk about the number 9 and the significance of the number 9 and a few other things. So I'll include all this contact information in the liner notes, and I really hope you enjoy this interview. And without further ado, here we go. Peace, blessings, Taosho. Thank you so much for joining me today here at the Cosmic Medicine Journey podcast.
Thank you, and my pleasure speaking to you and through you to the wider community and letting them know how the process of transformation can take place. Because my main purpose is transformation of human consciousness.
Yeah, I think a lot of people right now are ready for receiving that type of information, and information in a way that is beyond the clutter of this information age. There's so much information out there right now. Anyone can read a book on spirituality, and they can try to work on devising their own practices. But I know you talk about the importance of a guide and having guidance, and that's something that's very prominent in a lot of traditions. Like in Sufism, you have a sheikh, such as yourself, and in the Vedic traditions, you have a guru, and the importance of having a guide. But before we get too much further, I was thinking maybe it might be good for our listenership to kind of get a sense of who you are. So, I know you have this rich history and lineage of, being from a family of Sufi masters. So how did you yourself kind of get into this path of spirituality?
You ask the question, who you are. Mm-hmm. Is it important to know who I am or who you are? I teach you the ways and means to know who you are. As far as I am concerned, I know who I am. And the same way as I have known who am I want everyone to know who they are. And this is how the process of a spiritual development or transformation begins. I was born in a Sufi family. My grandfather, mother's father was Sufi. And it happens when you visit a particular city, you are looking for your connections there, where you can stay, who can take you around the city, and all that. In the same way, when an individual dies awakened, then if he chooses to take a next birth, he can choose his parents. So in that way, it was a communion between me and the Sheikh Sufi Brij Mohan Lal, Razi Allah Ta'ala Uno, the Naqshbandi Sheikh, that what I found, that this is the best opportunity where I can grow, just as when you have many people, like in outskirts of Philadelphia, where you are staying, I have to choose which is the best possible opportunity from where I have access to the purpose for which I am visiting the city, and the many other opportunities. Like when I come and stay with you, then the Panchkarma, the Ashtanga Yoga, and things like these. So, in the same way, it is a connection between the one who is taking birth and one who is staying. Like I am taking birth in Philadelphia, taking my retreat, coming to Philadelphia. So, I am looking for someone who is already established there. So, Sufi Brajmohan Lal was one who was there, who was a Naqshbandi master, and I was born in his family. And it was significant when my grandmother came to know that her daughter is pregnant. So one day she asked the sheikh, "What name we will put to our grandson?" My grandfather used to work in police office as a head clerk. You know what did he say?
What?
He said, "Today, a thief came to the police station, was brought to the police station, and his name was Brij Kumar. I will name my grandson as Brij Kumar." Now, this is a very significant statement. Why I was named after a thief. Brij is the place where Krishna was born, and Krishna is known as the young. Kumar means the young one of Brij. So that was there. So one interpretation is this: I have that trait of Krishna. Second, now there are many people who do things but they are not aware. They start with one relationship, problem comes in, they abandon that without finishing it. So what happens then in life, whatever work you leave incomplete, you have to start over again. For instance, you are working in an office, you have a project to finish today, but it is a Friday, the end of the week, and time is almost coming for the closer. Instead of staying and finishing this in next hour, you postpone it for Monday. So Monday you have to take a longer time to start back again. Many times we interact with people, we enter into relationship and abandon it incomplete. Whatsoever you leave incomplete, you have to come back and fulfill it. So in that way, it was a message for me that whatsoever work the others have left incomplete, I have to help them to complete their work, whether it is relationship or anything. Now, another way it is, you are the head of a place, of a household. You have invited certain people or function you are organizing. There are many things. Somebody has to take care of the decor, somebody has to take care of the food and gifts and all these things. But if you realize one of the person is failing in its responsibility to fulfill that obligation, by 6 o'clock when the guests will start arriving, what you will do? You will put yourself into, or put one of your very important person who is capable of taking and fulfilling that. He said, "Look, we are finding it some shortcoming at the deco aspect. You go and finish that. You have taken work of yourself." So in the same way I interpreted it, I was given the responsibility, number one, to help those who have left the things incomplete out of ignorance. And whatever work cannot be completed, it has to be fulfilled. Now, when it comes to business, I am in business. Whatsoever is happening in life, it is coming from the past. Whatsoever you left incomplete yesterday, you have to come and complete it today. So all those people who have left their work out of ignorance, I have to fulfill their works, help them in continuing. So this was the reason that I was born. So I grew up born in a Hindu family, and grew up in Sufi family. So one day when I was 8 months of age, I was born in 1951. My grandfather took Samadhi in 1955. So 4 years, you do not understand anything. So every night I used to sleep with my grandfather. Whenever I am by my grandfather. And he told my mother to pick me up from 3 o'clock, at 3 o'clock from his bed, because that time he enters into his cosmic, the work, where, like in my case, it is easier. Right now I am speaking to you in the Eastern time zone. You are in the Pacific time zone, but there are people who are UK. The time is the Greenwich Mean Time. Then Europe is 5 hours ahead of us. India is 9.5 hours ahead of us. So it is easier. But at that time, when he was in one time zone alone, so there are people who are sleeping. So when you want to communicate something, the best possible manner is to communicate through the subconscious of the person. Just as a seed is planted in the womb of the earth, and from there it begins to grow, when the seed of consciousness is sowed in the unconscious of an individual, and how can you do that? When a person is sleeping. So that hour, when the energy field is very high, between 3:30 and until 6 o'clock, the energy field of the cosmos is very high. There is silence, and vibrations can flow, can move very, very easily and without any disturbance. So that time he is communicating with all those people to whom he want to plant the seed of consciousness through their subconscious. So it happened one day, my mother forget me to pick from his bed. He went into his intense work, meditation, or whatsoever it is. I became unconscious from 3 o'clock until 8. I remained in that state, unconscious. So my Sufis have a unique way. They do not want anybody to know that it is their doing. So he said that to his daughter, that you are so lazy that sleep was important, you forget about your child, and see what happened to him. So my mother started crying. At this, there was one elderly person who has the liberty of speaking to my grandfather in any way. He said, why do you get angry on the girl? It was you who wanted to give this child all that you wanted to give. It is your doing, and you're blaming your daughter. So he became quiet. That continued, and he said that I should spend most of my time with my grandmother, that is my Nani. So then in 1969, I came to stay with her permanently in Kanpur, in the city where they were living. So one day I asked as such my grandmother that I have nothing to do, nobody teaches me anything. Whenever any individual or seeker is to be initiated, I have to prepare the place, I have to prepare the person and tell them everything, but nobody tells me anything. So one day, in the evening night, I used to massage her feet before going to bed. She said, you was complaining that no one has told you anything. Your grandfather has given you everything. And when the time comes in, it will reveal. So that means he gave the complete authority, the Khalifahood, but that has to be actualized. It was given in the seed form, but it has to be actualized. So I spent time with my uncle, mother's brother, who was the Sufi, the Sheikh after my grandfather. So everything. And then one day she used to tell me that you should learn the Arabic and Persian because the most of the Sufi literature is in that language. So I told her, I said, I'm not interested in learning any language. Teach me that language, knowing which everything becomes known, the language of silence. If you can decipher the language of silence, you can understand anything written in any language. So that's how I born and grew up. And then I came to Trinidad.
Right.
And then one day more, I'd ask her, my grandmother, what is my religion? What is my religion? So she told me, your religion is the same as that of God. So immediately, this is no answer. So I asked her, what is the religion of God? She said, you ask too many questions. Find that out yourself. Discover it. What is the religion of God? So that's why when people ask me, what is your religion? No one asks water, what is its religion? No one asks salt or sugar, what is its religion? And Jesus says, I am the saltishness in the salt. I am that quality which quenches the thirst. The quality, water has that quality which quenches the thirst. I am water. And consciousness is water that flows. It can acquire any shape, any container, wherever you put a cup of water, a glass of water, a bucket of water, a pitcher of water. Water has no shape. The moment it comes, it is something like this. You have an empty piece of land. You build a structure on it. But the land is permanent. A structure is not permanent. A structure has a life. It will stay there for 50 years, 60 years, and after that you have to renovate it. You have to upgrade it, and according to the needs. So my body, my mind is that structure which is built on consciousness, which is the root, which is the background. And I am that. This is where when Moses asked God, how should we know you? God says, according to Hebrew, that I am that I am. And this is the name I shall be known by. This is what Hindus say, Tattvamasi.
Right.
I am that. The four important statements of the scriptures, Vedas. So I am that, I am no form, no name. So the name is for identification. My name is not Taoshobuddha. I am known by that name. People call me that name. And my name is for the legal purposes. My name is Bridge Saxena. I am known by that name. You know very clearly if your wife, your husband calls you by different names depending on what the person wants to get out of you. If you are sitting and your wife is also sitting on the couch, you want to get a water, you say, darling, can I get a cup of water? This darling is emotional way of addressing the person to get the work done. If you had just said, get me a glass of water, the person would have outrightly rejected. No, you have your feet and hands, go and get your water. But the moment you said, sweetheart, can I get a glass of water, please? Immediately, so is sweetheart, is darling your name? No.
Right.
How you identify a person at a particular point in time, that becomes that is the name that you are addressed by.
Right.
So this is in short. I had said, if there is anything that you want me to speak more on, who am I?
All right. Well, you know what's important? It's interesting that you talk about this this state of sleep. There was this article that I read from you in the 2011 edition of the Journal of the Naqshbandi Tarika, which was on going from sleep to becoming awake. And you mentioned this story of the Sufi who's visited by an angel and told to collect water, and that he's told by the angel to collect water because the water will be poisoned the next day in town. And so he goes and collects water, and then sure enough, the next day everyone else has the poisoned water. He's the only one who doesn't. But then that leaves him in a state of being perceived as mad. So how do you reconcile that? Like, on the one hand, there's the state of sleep that, you know, a lot of us might be in the modern world just to go through our day. But then there's the state of being awake, and that might be perceived as being pathological, being something that is, you know, disturbing. So, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about this story. I'm sure you would probably say it better than I did.
This story, as you mentioned, but the most important thing is this: how your sleep can be transformed. First of all, your waking, whatsoever you do in your waking state, that goes through your sleep pattern. Whatever thoughts you have at the moment, at the point you are going to sleep, that is the first thought that appears when you wake up in the morning. So if your waking state is transformed, your sleep is transformed. That's why the yoga says the yogi never sleeps. So there is a particular incident, that's an anecdote from the life of Gautam Buddha. His cousin Anand, he was older to him. He said that tomorrow I will be initiated by you. I'll be your disciple. I have to follow all that you tell me. But now I am your elder brother. I can ask you any question. So before I become initiated, I want to ask 3 boons, 3 questions. Number 1, you will not send me anywhere to carry on your message as you send the other monks. I will stay with you. Second, you will not meet any person without me being present there. I will witness, or whenever you are meeting someone. The third, I will sleep in the same room where you will sleep. Buddha said, okay. But these 3 boons became a problem for Anand to become enlightened until after Buddha passed away. So Anand mentioned, Buddha, I have seen you sleeping in the various hours of the night, but I have never seen you turning your sides. He said, I do not sleep. Body rests, and body has no disturbance. Where the disturbance comes from the mind. People are sleeping and you can see their eyes are blinking. You are listening to me, my eyes will not blink. Because it is not the mind is speaking. Mind is an instrument through which the words are forming. The arrangement of the sentences is coming through the mind. But who is speaking? It is the consciousness which is speaking. So there is no movement of the eyeballs, and eyelids are directly connected to whatsoever is going on in your mind. If your mind is disturbed and you sleep, your eyes will be blinking as if you are awake. So he said, there is no disturbance in my mind. It is crystal clear. Body needs rest from time to time. So when I rest, I do not need to turn my sides. When that state comes in, the sleep is transformed. And you will not be, so it is very important you transform your living state, the waking state, the wakefulness. With that, all that is unconscious will disappear. The sleep is partly unconscious and partly conscious. So that is why Hindus say that Krishna says the yogi, what are the qualities of a yogi? Yogi never sleeps, but we take it literally. We do not sleep the way you sleep. I may be sleeping, but any moment you call me, I am ready to answer you. And whatever question you answer while I am asleep, I will answer correctly as if I am answering while I am waking. So the sleep is transformed. So the way to transform the sleep is through that way.
It reminds me of one of the quotes or hadiths from the Prophet Muhammad also, which is, sleep is the cousin of death.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering, in relationship to this process of going from the state of sleep to becoming awake, one of the things you also talk about is the importance of initiation, of getting guidance. It's something that is prevalent in a lot of Eastern thought, whether it's in Sufism with the Sheikh, whether it's in the Vedic tradition with the Guru, having some kind of guide to usher you through. And you also talk about the danger of not having a guide. Is it necessary, or how can someone who might be in this desire of going from a state of sleep to being awake go through that process without a guide, or do you feel like it's absolutely necessary to have a guide?
In order to connect to me or connect to a person, there are many devices. WhatsApp device is free. Are you initiated into WhatsApp? All you need to know how to utilize download that system and start using it within a certain framework, following the protocol of WhatsApp, and you can do it. So why it is necessary? Now, for me, when I look at it, I have people who are friends in different parts of the world, Europe or different places. So one person, when he heard this talk, that initiation is important for the process of transformation to happen, so he asked, he said, I am in Sweden, I have never met you, but only through this system, the Skype, through WhatsApp. And so what I told him, the moment you come within the energy field, initiation means you are coming within the energy field of the person. Now you are within the energy field of this device that is being used to have the communion. Outside this device, there is no way for us to commune or communicate with one another. Initiation is the process through which you communicate with the with the sheikh, with the light, with awareness, with consciousness. As such as you are unconscious. You do not know why the hand is shaking, why all these things are happening. So somewhere or the other, the energy is flowing through you and making you do these things. We have seen people are talking and they have continued to have the lot of movements of the hands. Why do I have to make the movements of that, except that of the mouth? Because the different words are spoken from different the spaces within the mouth. There is no need. So for that purpose, initiation is important. And also it is important that as such, your mind is the master for you. You are guided by the mind. You know nothing about consciousness or anything beyond the body. This is why the Tantra gives so much importance on body. If you know your body, you know that it is a mystery, it is a miracle of the existence. It can do certain things which no factory can do. The body converts whatsoever you put into blood. No factory can convert chicken into blood, or alcohol into blood, or ice cream into blood, but the body does. But we reject the body, we reject the mind. Mind is an important instrument, but it is just as the steering wheel is in the hands of the driver. The driver's consciousness manipulates the steering wheel and creates a balance between the steering wheel, the accelerator, and the brakes, and that's how the vehicle continues to move. So through this, can a person who does not know driving can drive the car and go on the busy street? No. You have to know an efficient driver, and under his guidance you learn the art of driving. So, sure.
It's interesting that you mentioned the driving instructor analogy. I know I had a difficult time learning how to drive as someone who grew up in New York City. It's a pedestrian culture, and so to learn how to drive was a necessity. You can take public transportation everywhere. The subway system is pretty efficient. But there was also that student-teacher relationship, and there were things that I felt resistant to because everyone also drives differently. And, given the landscape, people will drive according to the landscape. A lot of the driving in New York City could be a little bit aggressive. So it kind of reminded me of the analogy you use with the shoemaker, where you talk about this process of initiation into going from this state of being asleep to becoming awake isn't a simple matter. So you gave this example in one of your lectures on the Sufi master who was a shoemaker, and his students, his sadhakas, were people who studied shoemaking under him, and oftentimes they would ask, when are we going to learn spirituality? So I'm curious about that story and like this process.
Okay, I will take that story. Mm-hmm. This is the story with George Ivanovich Gurdjieff. Mm. He was nomadic, born in a nomadic family of Armenian descent. Many years after, he spent a lot of time in Middle East. So many years after, Leon Lefort, who wrote the biography of the Masters of Gurdjieff, he went in search of the Masters of Gurdjieff. So one of the master he met, there are many, a few are very important. Leon asked him, what did you teach Gurdjieff? He told him, I taught him how to breathe. Breathe? What do you mean? Leon whispered. He said, do you think you can breathe? That is where we learn the art of breathing. Breathing consciously. Breathing is an important tool to how to correct many things. If there is a pain, you can use the breathing. If there is anger, you can use the breathing to convert. If there is fear, you can use breathing to correct it. So the Sheikh said, I taught him how to breathe. Another one who he heard, he was a carpet weaver. So where to meet him? So he went to meet him on in his office, in his shop. So he showed him one of the carpet and asked him, how do you find this piece of carpet for meditation? So Leon said, it looks very good. It is very good. So he told him, continue to look at this piece of carpet, the design, for 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, his head started reeling. He started feeling giddy. So how to blend the colors How to blend all these things is important. I will give you an example from my grandfather's life. He was a head clerk in the police office. So it was that three masters were simultaneously contemporary in one family. Then the Sheikh Hazrat Abdul Ghani Khan Raziyallahu Ta'ala Anhu. So it happened that my grandfather's father was Sufi Raghuvar. So one of his disciples got eye trouble. So he heard there is a particular Hakim. So he went by him. All these Hakims, they came from the Islamic tradition and they have the Sufi influence on them. So some of them were Sufis as well. So when the Hakim saw him, he gave him the medicine and that was okay. He came back to home. Next day, he went with another fellow disciple who has the similar problem. So he went and the Hakim saw him and gave him the medicine as well, but he was surprised. Third day, another disciple went who had a similar problem. Then when he reached, the Hakim said, "Now I will not give you the medicine. Your eyes seem to be wounded of somebody as if you are in love with someone." He said, "We are elderly people. What are you talking about?" He said, "These eyes are wounded by a Sufi sheikh. You are in love with a master. And unless you tell me the name of the master, I will not give you the medicine." But they were told Sufis hide themselves and do not reveal their identity. It is so that like my great-grandfather used to say, that I do not want the worldly dog to come to my place simply to waste my time. So when he mentioned to the master, he said, no, don't give my name. Give the name of my big son. So Brajmohan Lal's name was given. He said, "What does he do?" He said, "He is a head clerk in the police office." So he said, "I will go and meet him." So the next day, 2 days after, these three, I call them musketeers, they were very anxious. What does this other person say about my master? So they asked him, he asked them, "Have you gone to meet him?" "Yes, I went." He said, "Did you meet him?" He said, "No." He said, "What do you mean you went to meet him and you did not meet?" This is the mystical language. He said, "I went to meet him. I stood behind his chair and he was busy with his work, and it appeared as if he will finish the entire of his work in a day's time, but not even a single breath was free from Yad-e-Ilahi. With every incoming and outgoing breath, we call it in Sufi terminology zikr. It was continuing, or I call it awareness. The awareness is there that I am simply an instrument." And he said, "I was waiting there. I waited for 1 hour to see that even if his one breath is free from the remembrance of the divine, that I can pay my regards." Now their egos was inflated. And they were very happy that my master is such a great man. So when they came and he told the master said, "What did you tell him? Why you didn't tell me? Because what would he be thinking about me that, I did not have even the courtesy to offer him a seat or anything, just to avoid, to shatter their egos." So then it was arranged that two will meet, and two of them were respecting one another sending the laurels for one another, and the meeting continued for, like, if it is something like this, if you're one of the best friend comes to visit you, so there will be a great feast and all those who are at home will take part of that. So this is how there is a particular story about this shoemaker. When you go to the Sufis, they will allow you to remain there and continue to do the work, whatever they are doing, engage in their activities. And in that, you are observing the master moment to moment, and that brings the transformation. If you have that keen perception of observing how does this person behave or respond to a particular question or anything, this is important. Like, as I mentioned to you, that I lived with my uncle, the family. So every morning from 6 o'clock, there used to be the meditation session. So those who were close by or who have the transportation facility, they will come for the meditation 6 o'clock in the morning. And by 7 or 8, this is finished. Then he was working in the Reserve Bank of India. So he has to go to his work. So before I go to work or anything, I have to prepare, finish the room. They didn't have the carpet or anything, the ordinary thin mattress, and then they put the sheet and fix it properly and then light the incense and everything. Then in the evening now, during the summer months, the sessions used to take place on the top of the roof. Now, with the intense heat, the floor is the rooftop is very hot. So you have to sprinkle the water, and then you have to do the spread the mattress and do the work. Once you spread the mattress, and then, so all this work I was doing. I was given the responsibility of warming the water in winter for the shower of my uncle. So I have to, in winter, we didn't have that time, the electric stove or the gas stove. So it was the fireplace in chula. The wood has to be put, but in winter, the wood is also cold and it is not burning. So I used to tell the servant, fill the water in the pot and leave it on that, and the wood into the fireplace, and I will light. In the morning, the matchbox is cold, it's not lighting, and my uncle will call me. And then in between, I fall asleep, while sitting down and waiting for the water to get ready. So, and I had to keep the clothes for him in the restroom for him to finish his towel, his dhoti, and whatsoever it is. So he will call me. He used to call me, Bhaiya, is water ready? I said, yes, it's getting ready. He said, as soon as it... So there was no opportunity to fall into unconsciousness. Anytime any thought arises in your mind, immediately there is a hit. This is called Sufi's hit. Any ill thought comes to your mind, immediately a Sufi hit comes to you. That means any moment of unconsciousness, a hit comes in, so you become aware. This is how I grew up. But modern day people, they are not interested in that. I was told by my uncle one day, in Lucknow city, there was one Hakim. He will come in the morning, he will sit down on he used to sit down on a wooden platform which is known as takhat, and the patient is sitting down, and he has 2 or 3 people writing the prescription. He will hold the nabs, pulse of one person with one hand and with the next hand, and start narrating the condition of the people and the medicine, and no one will make the mistake. After that, the prescriptions were given, the medicines are prepared, and he will inspect every prescription and medicine, and it is given. And after that, he will go, that is by lunchtime or mid-afternoon. That's the time he will go and eat something. So he used to be on empty stomach seeing the patients. So my uncle mentioned that he got friendly. He asked his uncle, the Hakim, how did you attain to this state? He said, during my growing years, I used to come to the clinic of my grandfather. He will hold the pulse of the patient in his hand. The next hand, I am told, so he is seeing that what it is going on. And he will ask me to explain the condition of the patient. Anytime I make a mistake, he will slap me, and I will sometimes fall down from the takhat. But there was no disrespect. There was no disrespect at all.
Right.
That he insulted me in front of the people. Now, even if a small child, if you tell them anything, he said, you insulted me. How can that person learn? How can that person learn?
Yeah.
So he said, this is how I learned the art of Hakimi. Right. And I became so well versed that they unparalleled. So this is how I grew up. Everyone has to learn in the same way. In the same way as I learned, when you are within the energy field of the master, there is no possibility for you to be missing a moment, just as you cannot miss even a single breath. Right. A breath that is not soaked in the name of the divine is death. Right. And the breath that is soaked in the name of the divine, that is life. This is how you grew up.
Right, right.
There is no other way.
Right, right.
And there was 9 masters that Leon Lefort met. One was a drummer and a shoemaker, the carpet weaver, and this is how he learned from them. That how did Gurdjieff born and grew up? Gurdjieff grew up into the intricacies of the Sufi path, and when he started the dances, the Sufi dances, it used to happen that he will perform the stage performances, and one of the stage performances was performed in New York, and the dancers were almost reaching to the edge of the platform, which was about 6-7 feet higher than from the ground, and the people were sitting in the auditorium, and so all the dancers felt that Gurdjieff will tell them to stop, but he did not. He turned his face towards them and lit his cigar. And all the dancers fell about 6 feet down, but not even a single person was hurt. Otherwise, in that state, you will find that somebody's bone will be fractured or something. So this is here, when you are soaked into divine consciousness, no harm can come to you, or the extent of the harm will be minimized to the lowest. And this is how Gurdjieff used to do. And when people coming to his place, he used to test them. So he is with the people, all of a sudden the door opens and somebody is trying to flutter in. Gurdjieff will look at the person and make the face. The person felt embarrassed. Why is this man making face at me or jeering at me? This is how Gurdjieff used to train them. And he was a real Sufi, how he trained. And now when it comes to consciousness, are you conscious of whatsoever is happening? Gurdjieff's one disciple was the mathematician, I do not recall his name, who became he said he wanted to die walking. My great-grandfather He continued to explain. When it came the last moment of his life, he was in the room. His Sufi Sheikh Abdul Ghani Khan was in the room. His son Sufi Jagmohan Narayan, his nephew Brijmohan Lal, his son, his wife, my grandmother was in the room. And he continued to say, my life force, it receding from the big two. There is no life in the big two. It has reached from there to the inner step. Now it is moving from the inner step. Now this is the process that we do when we relax people. We say, feel that big toe is relaxing, big toe is relaxed, and the moment it is relaxed, you become unaware. You become unaware of it. You forget. You remember something only when there is a shortcoming. You become aware of your disease when the health aspect is missing into it. If you are healthy, you will not know any pain. You will know your body only when there is a discomfort. So in the same way, he continued to mention, and then he said that there continued to mention the different parts. And when it reached the throat center, he said, now it is receding from the throat center. I am still alive, but I cannot narrate because the throat center, which is the center of talking, is no more alive. And the moment when the life force left, everyone felt the room was filled with light, as if the light has removed out of the forehead and dissolved into the cosmos.
It reminds me of just the process of alchemy, where the alchemical process requires this transformation to happen. And in a certain period of time, that was the medicine system that people practiced, was looking at this transformative process. And at the heart of the transformative process, at the heart of this alchemical process that was practiced throughout the Middle East, which was migrated by way of Unani, one of the medical systems, Unani medicine that came into India, is spirituality. And so one of the things I do wonder about, in light of what you're saying about education, the importance of discomfort, the importance of being able to be alert by way of this discipline, where Gurdjieff is watching his students spin and fall and letting them fall and them trusting him. I guess I wonder about that in the modern world. Like, how do you, especially people who are interested in alternative medicine. So, as you know, I practice this ancient medicine that comes out of the Indian subcontinent, the Ayurveda Unani yogic system. And so much of it is based on beyond the herbalism, beyond the plant medicine, beyond the massage and body work. It's based on spirituality. But that spirituality requires a discipline. So I'm wondering, in the modern world where anyone can just buy anything. So if I want to be a yoga teacher, I could just buy or, pay for a program and get a certificate. Or if I want to become an herbalist, I could just pay for a program. How do what would you suggest, or how would you address this issue of consumerism on the one hand, which is, the modern world of capitalism, that anyone can buy and sell anything, including spirituality, versus this ancient form of knowledge transmission, whether it's with medicine or any other system of transmission, which requires a spiritual discipline. How do you reconcile that ancient style of knowledge and education with this modern world of everything is a commodity and anyone can buy and sell anything?
This is an important aspect. Number one, when you look at the doctors now, they treat the patient as customers. I have read about one of the CEO of a pharmaceutical company that says our commitment is to our shareholders. We are not concerned with the patients. This is the situation of all the doctors. The doctors, they have a high name, they carry because they have to carry a nice office, all those things are maintained. For that, they will have to charge high fees. And so the patients have to pay. I recall very well, I got into, my blood count went low. And it went low to 4.9, 4.3. Imagine a blood count being 4.3. So my doctor, who does the alternate medicines, and when he says that, I asked him, how did you determine the price of this medicine, where he is transferring the vibrations of a particular medicine, homeopathic or flower remedy or anything, into the water with 2% alcohol into it, because the water, any vibration can be transferred to the water, but it does not retain for a longer period of time. So alcohol base is needed there. In Japan, there is Dr. Tomato, who has worked on transferring the vibrations to the water. So I asked him, how did you determine the price of it? The cost of that is not more than $10. The alcohol in the water bottle, and you are charging $240. He said, I asked the existence how much price should be, and the existence tell me. I said, who questioned the existence? He said, I said, who answered on behalf of the existence? He said, I. So I said, how can you say it is the existence determine the price of this medicine supposed to be this? So I said, I have heard there were 3 people, one was a Hindu, one was a Muslim, one was a Christian, and they were talking that we offer our money to God. So Muslims said we offer 2% of our income as zakat for the work of Allah. Then the Christians said we offer 10% of our income for the God and His messenger. So Hindu said, I give everything to Shiva, and tell him that everything to Shiva. People ask, how do you do? He said, I take everything, all the money, and throw it in the air and tell God to take whatever you want and send me the rest. So how do you determine now this is the situation of all. My grandfather during he used to go to the police office. The meditation session will finish by 7:30. After that, he used to distribute the homeopathic medicine free homeopathic medicines, and the people will come and nobody was being charged. And what happens when you are within the energy field of the master? Many of the things disappear by itself. It is his energy field, his tawajjuh, which is working and creating the healing, not the medicine. So sometimes there was homeopathic doctors. When my grandfather will ask, Doctor, is this medicine for this? He said, medicine for this. But whatever you give becomes the medicine remedy for this particular ailment for this person. You don't ask me, because whatever you give, it is your tawajjuh which is going, and which is this may sound like a miracle. It happened that there was a disciple, his wife had a tumor in her stomach. Mm-hmm. So when doctor said there is tumor, it has to be operated. The date for the operation was fixed. So she told my mother that I do not want to get operation done. So she said, asked my mother to request the sheikh to do something. So she said, no, you do it yourself. In that time, we did not have the face basin or sink when he will come from the restroom, his hand, somebody will have the water in the bucket and will pour the water on his hand to wash his hands. So he said that time you go and they help him in washing his hands, and that time you make your request. So he mentioned, he said, what did you say? You have a tumor and doctor said it has to be operated. No, you get a test, a second test done, because sometimes the machines are not proper and the doctor's diagnosis is not correct. You go and see it. So when she went, he said, before you doing the operation, do a second opinion. When she did the opinion, the doctor said, you have no tumor. What happened there? Within the energy field, when she surrendered herself, that means she came within the energy field of the sheep. And with that energy field, it dissolved what is tumor? A certain configuration of the energies. It becomes a particular disease. This is when there is too much of anger in you and it becomes consolidated. It converges at one place. It becomes a problem. You can use anger as a tool, or you can be used by anger. Raman used to use anger. The masters use anger as a tool. Whereas we use anger, we are used by anger as a tool. Anger is an energy. The energy is neutral. It can acquire just as consciousness, water acquires any shape or any form. With the positive and the negative poles, when they interact with one another and neutralize, an energy is generated. That energy can be utilized to light a bulb, that can be utilized to cook your food, or cool or keep your body temperature at normal, but it is the two poles, positive and negative, the male and female, the Shiva and Shakti, when they are in harmony with one another, that is where the master has attained to that state where he is neither male nor female, the Ardhanarishwar, half male, half female, which is Shiva. In that state, there is transmission of energy which can do anything. So the master remains in that state. And when he casts his eye, like you take the torchlight and you focus in a particular direction, it shows you things that are needed. In the same way, master uses the energy and focuses on one particular part to dissolve all that is there. When you want to melt something, you have a light with the heat that you throw on a particular spot, and that gets softer or melted, and then you can mold it. So what he did, through the eyes, the energy moves, and the energy, the moment he looked at into her womb or cast his glance, with that the energy moved and energy dissolved that particular ailment.
It makes me think of how much importance is oftentimes placed, even in the alternative medicine world, on the product or on the plant. So for instance, there's this tendency to say, well, angelica might be good for as a analgesic, or it might, St. John's wort might be good as an antidepressant, etc. And there's almost this clinical divorced relationship between the person and the medicine they're practicing, when what you're talking about is that not only are they intertwined and come from the same essence, but that the spirit of the one practicing is the medicine itself. So more than anything, they're using it's the Sufi master, it's the medicine man, the Hakim, the Vadia that is the medicine.
The two things are there. Number one, the herb has its nutritional value, has its qualities, has its healing properties. You have to invoke that properties. If you want to get some work done from someone, you have to invoke the quality of the, like, I want to get something done from you. I know you are a great artist. I have to invoke your artistic quality to get the work done. So medicine has healing properties. Are you in harmony with the medicine, or you are just using the medicine as a profession and picking it up the medicine and giving? Then it will not work.
Right.
It may work, it may not work. You are connecting you are the one who are connecting the patient with the medicine and establishing a subtle connection. He becomes a subtle connection between the medicine and the patient, and he gives that medicine and it works. It says that, you understand Hindi?
Very thorough, very little.
I will use the word, बुजुर्गों की दुआओं में वो तासीर होती है कि चुटकी खाक भी दे दें तो यकसीर होती है. In the prayers of the master is that capability. Even they give, khak means the something which is, khak means the ash. Even they give the ash, that becomes a medicine.
Right.
Whatsoever he gives, and that is what he practiced. He gave something. What he is giving the pouring his energy into that person, and that is what it heals. But if you are not aware, you can the disease of the person can transmit into you. I have a person, lady, who used to give the massage, and then now she has developed a problem in her hands that she cannot give the massage anymore. So I told her, I said, in giving the massage, you became a garbage bin. You collected the symptoms of the others. You were doing as an individual, not as a healing element. That is a connection between the electric source and the instrument, like between God and the patient. The ego was there, and as a result, you captured all those things, and now you cannot use your hands, which were. So when you are giving any medicine, it is the quality, it is the properties of the herbs. It will work only if it is divine will. So, right. Are you ready for the divine will?
Right. I think that's a great.
The medicine will work for you.
Yeah, I think
this cannot be taught through a certification or through any other means. This comes with person-to-person communion. When you are, just as I mentioned, that the person, how he learned the art of the Hakimi from his grandfather. I learned from my grandmother. She never praised anything in front of me, but behind my back, she will talk high or good or something or the other. But in front, the last time when I met my uncle, the first thing he will ask anyone, how long you will be here? And so he asked me, how long you will be here? I said, I will be leaving in a while to go to other place, the other city, to visit the shrines, and then I will go back to Delhi and from there fly after a few days. That's all. So in that moment, he communes. Now people want to talk, use the words. It is this silent communion which is very important between the two known people. Like, for instance, I will give a very crude example. A man got recently newly married, but there is a function going on. So he is not getting an opportunity to meet his bride in privacy. So the bride also wants to meet him in privacy, and he wants to, and they talk in silent language. And just by gesture of the head or the eyes, the entire message is communicated. This is where I said love is an unseen but realized truth. It pronounces aesthetic beauties and speaks in silence. Love is not word, love speaks through silence. And if you understand the language of silence, you have learned the mother of all languages, the mother of all communions,
right.
The way to communicate with the person.
Right, right. And what this makes me think of is the language of the universe, the language of cosmos, and that itself being a medicine. Like, for instance, each season is a revelation for us to tap into what is happening in the larger universe. And so just to shift gears a little bit, I'm wondering, now that we're entering into this number 2 in the zodiac season, so we're transitioning out of Aries into Taurus, we're entering the number 4 in the Gregorian calendar, and we're entering the number 9 in the Islamic calendar, where it's the month of Ramadan, when people are fasting to grow deeper in their humility, to grow into a state of God consciousness. I wonder what you see as the medicine of the cosmos in relationship to the seasons and these numbers.
Okay, I will come to you some historical, the scriptural aspect. You have heard about Ram, and there was a Swayamvar, means a self-chosen a function where there was a bow, and the king put a condition: whosoever breaks this bow will get married to my daughter. So all the kings and everyone gathered, and nobody could lift the bow, and it was Ram who broke the bow. But the bow belonged to one of the persons, sage, who was a very angry sage, and when he heard the sound, he came back and he started arguing and started thinking of punishing Ram, and the whole process went on. Then at a time he said that if you can place the arrow on this bow, then I will recognize that you are an incarnation of Vishnu. And he does it. As soon as he puts the arrow onto the bow, then he addresses him. He said, "Gentlemen, you know it very well. When an arrow is placed on the bow, it cannot be left without reaching the target. What should I destroy with it? Should I destroy he was given the boon that with his power of thinking, he can move from one place to another, and he will not stay on the earth in the night after sunset. He must go to the mountain where he will stay." So he said, "Should I destroy that?" He said, "Do not destroy that. You shoot the arrow in the northerly direction, and when you send the direction in that, with that, my ego, my vanity, all my good karmas will destroy, and with that, my ego will destroy also, and that place will, with that arrow, that place will become a desert. Nothing will grow, but there will grow many herbs which will be beneficial for humanity in times to come." Now, according to Hindu tradition, there are two times when Navaratri is celebrated. Navaratri means 9 nights of the energy, the feminine energy. One comes in when winter is coming to an end, during this period, when you are entering into summer. That time the immunity is very low. Immunity is low, people contract many viruses and many things. So that time. And then the second time when winter is coming to an end, and no, summer is coming to an end and you are entering winter, that is Diwali time. That is again Navratri is celebrated. Navratri means 9 nights, 9 forms of the energy. 9 forms of the energy. The first one is Shalputri, the daughter of the mountain. So it is said traditionally people do the fasting on that day, and the emphasis is on rituals. But these forms of goddess are nothing else but the energy, forms of energy. During that period, you are allowed to eat a particular kind of a grain, which is when during the fasting, they do not use the grain. Like for instance, amaranth is a flower, that a seed that comes out of a leafy vegetable, which is kind of a reddish in color, is a leafy vegetable which is a rich source of iron, and its seeds, when are dried and they are ground and used as a flour known as amaranth flour. This is used for fasting. The other is buckwheat. It is also a seed. It is not a grain. Grains are prohibited. You take the seed and you grind it. The third is water chestnut. Water chestnut is also, it is a kind of a fruit that grows into the pond in a kind of a creeper, and when it is young, it is tender and it is sweetened. When it is dried, then it is, or gets hardened, then it is boiled, then you can eat boiled, or when it is dried, its flour is ground and it is known as water chestnut flour or singoda flour. These 3 flours are used during fasting, along with the Himalayan salt. So during this period, when you are using these kind of grains, which are very rich source of protein and everything, rather than French fries and a Coke, which is empty calories, you are asked to eat the nutritionally dense food. It builds up your immune system. So during that period when your immune system is low, you have to use the herbs, you have to use the medicines which are necessary to build up the immune system. So the system of the medicine should be how to increase the immune system. Now we have the situation of virus called corona. Corona means fear of death. And the immune system is very low. The hygiene level is very low. People do not wash their hands proper. The proper way of washing the hands, rubbing the palms, then you do it on the back of this, then you do with the fingers, then the nails, then all over. This is the correct medical way of washing the hands. Then immune system, if it is improved, then there is no possibility of the virus to contact you. During 2 periods in the year when the immune system is very low, you can align it with the zodiac sign or number 9 or anything. 9 as such is the highest energy. It is known as angel power. The angel speaks to you. 9, that is the time the immune system becomes low. If your immune system is strong, nothing can contract you. And the immune system comes up when we move from the empty calories to nutritionally dense food. What kind of oil you use? The coconut oil is the low glycemic, it is monolaurine, and it is, the bonding is strong, and also its smoke point is very high, along with the clarified butter or ghee, 350 degree. So coconut oil, ghee, olive oil, avocado oil, these are the most important oils which one's supposed to use. But olive oil is very volatile. Its smoke point is very low, so it cannot be used in cooking. So now there is two types of cooking: Chinese cooking, Cantonese and Mandarin. In Cantonese cooking, the oil is heated to the smoke point and then food is cooked. So when the oil is heated to the smoke point, it becomes toxic. So what are you consuming? Toxicity into your system. When you are using the food which has not been made according to the spiritual standards, like for instance, I recall very well when my uncle used to drink the water, he will hold the cup in his hand and he will move his head clockwise and do something. So we were little children, so we started following him. They're doing the same thing without knowing. So my grandmother looked at me. He said, "What are you doing this? Do you know what he does?" I said, "No." Then he said, "Why you're doing the drama, the acting? First of all, find out what he does and then you do." So when he looking at the water, he is casting his glance, the unified glance, that his masculine and the feminine energies are united, and he's casting the glance, his energy is transmitted into the water and it becomes a medicine and he's drinking it. The same way he is eating food, food becomes the medicine. We are cooking the food, watching the TV serials. So what kind of vibration is going into the food? When you are cooking, the motto is cooking lovingly, cooking meditatively, cooking for Buddhas.
Right. And how do you see this as a connection to the number 9 and the season that we're in terms of us coming into Taurus?
Number 9 is the highest form of energy. If you can bring that energy into you, that means nothing will affect you. Each number has its significance from 1 to 9, but 9 is the last of the unitary number. After that, the process again comes up 10. 10 is 1, 11 is 2, 12 is 3. That same thing, that entire number system is divided between 1 to 9. So 9 is the number for the universal love, eternity, faith, universal spiritual law, the concept of karma, spiritual enlightenment, awakening, service to humanity, humanitarianism, light working, light workers, leading to the positive, all that is encompassed within 9. That is why 9 is the ultimate number, and and 3 is also important. When you are giving anesthesia to a person, up to 1, 2, 3. After 3, he cannot count 4. You try it, can never count 4, because then the 2, where the drop merges with the ocean, attain Fana. And then the individual consciousness merges into cosmic consciousness. 1 plus 1 becomes, they merges into one another, and mystically they do not become 2, they become 1. Which Hindus say Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate. You take out from the whole remains whole, nothing changes. So everything is complete. The more you take out from the water, when you take out the water from a drop of water from the bottled water, do you think its quality changes? Only the quantity changes, not the quality. The drop of water has the same quality as that of the entire mass, the totality of the water that is contained in the water bottle. So that's where the 9 significance. That's what I thought, that there we will speak on 9, the importance of 9, and according to Bible, according to Hebrew, according to Hinduism, and the Islamic tradition, and all these things.
I would highly recommend people to check out your lectures on YouTube and also...
Number one, I will correct here. You are in the spiritual field. Never use the word lecture. It is the lecturer who lectures. A master gives a message. So my talks are messages, not lectures.
That's a really important distinction. And so
I don't give lectures.
Right.
When I was a university lecturer, I used to give lectures because my name was lecturer. Now, no, nothing of that is there. Whatsoever I speak is a message based on my understanding, based on my consciousness, which I share with you. It is up to you to accept it or not.
Thank you so much, Taosho, for joining me today. It was such an honor to have you, and hopefully we'll continue our conversation.
It is my pleasure speaking to you.